direction, he followed you, and then all of a sudden, for no reason, you stopped, you kept going. I was like, interesting. Weird shit. Yeah. Okay. Come out.
Alright, I'm live now, apparently. Alright, apparently I'm live. Welcome, new viewers, or initial viewers. Wait for more to join the broadcast, and we'll have some commentary in a moment at St. Louis here at Shaw and Clem, literally just a house down from where Von Derek Myers was murdered back in 2014 by off-duty police officer Jason Flannery. So we'll have more on that in just a minute here, so hang tight, folks. We'll be right with you. This must be the anniversary of it. Today's the 8th. Is that what I'm gathering? That's what I was thinking, but I just want to make sure.
I saw someone say that.
But it seems like it. It seems like it was, yeah, right about this time during Ferguson. Were you? That was some shit. But yeah, that's how. I mean, it was graphic. Nuts. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining the broadcast. Protesters will probably get started here any moment. Waiting for more people to arrive here at Shaw Boulevard in Clem, literally at the site where Von Derek Myers was shot and killed 3 years ago today, right here by Jason Flannery, who was an off-duty cop. He was actually leaving his moonlighting gig, which was a private security for the neighborhood just over here, when he saw Von Derek come out of the store that's just to the left of the screen here. Von Derek was in there getting a sandwich, wearing basketball shorts, and we know that Jason charged after him. Chased him to the right over here. I'm going to show you in just a minute. Ran between houses and shot many bullets into Von Derek Myers, killing him there. I was here that night when it happened. So fresh after it happened, I remember the pool of blood between the houses still haunts me to this day. And then seeing the police narrative change 3 times during the night into the morning. To the narrative in the morning saying that Von Derek had jumped out of bushes and confronted Jason Flannery, and that's why Jason Flannery feared for his life. And then shot him, but I'm going to show you in a minute here. The only bushes are like a couple houses down from where Von Derek was running in between the houses and was shot. So the magic bushes seem to have shifted locations once police gave their narrative finally in the morning. So this is very personal to a lot of people who have been protesting here in St. Louis. A lot of us that were here covering Ferguson or protesting during Ferguson were here that night, and days of protests here in the Shaw neighborhood after that, in support of the Myers family. There were eyewitnesses, there were neighbors that knew him. The store clerks knew him. He wasn't causing any trouble in the store. Jason Flannery took it upon himself to find trouble where there wasn't. And when a black man in St. Louis is being chased by a white cop, whether they know he's a cop or not, he's going to run for his life. And that's apparently what happened that night. Oh, yeah. And, you know, what was this, like a year later or so? Like 2016, when Jason Flannery, the same cop that shot Von Derek Myers, had cocaine in his system when he crashed an on-duty squad car. And then fled the scene, I believe, didn't he? He fled the scene, and that caused his termination. That's what caused his termination from the St. Louis Police Department. You know, not killing an unarmed person when he wasn't on duty. And what we're digging up is we believe that Jason Flannery also, we know for a fact that he was, after killing Von Derek Myers, he was an 0311 tactical instructor hired by Sergeant Brian Rossimano of SLMPD and Commander Deba, who have their private company, 0311 Tactical Solutions, that trains SLMPD and other police departments in the tactics, the brutal tactics you've seen used on protesters in the recent couple of weeks, if you've been keeping in touch with the Stockley verdict protests. So there's this whole conflict of interest beneath the scenes that has been going on in St. Louis for years that finally are starting to come to light now that people are seeing the brutal tactics used by Rossimano and 0311 and the way they train their riot squads to handle these protests. So we know Jason Flannery was an 0311 instructor after Von Derek Myers' death. We are fairly certain, and we're trying to come up with proof that even after he was fired from SLMPD for having cocaine in his system, crashing a squad car, and fleeing the scene, even after that, he was still hired on as an 0311 tactical instructor, training other police departments how to be a cop. So that's what is going on here tonight. That's why this is so personal to a lot of the protesters, personal to the media like myself that was here 3 years ago at the time, and seeing the cover-up, seeing the shifting of the narrative by the police 3 times over the night, when we have plenty of eyewitness accounts on the ground. We have live stream after it happened and photos after it happened showing, documenting where the shooting took place, where these bushes supposedly were, how far away that was from the store, and even still then, police were able to shift the narrative at the time, because at the time, the local media believed everything the police say. The difference now is, now that the police are starting to arrest some of them, the local media is paying more attention, they're digging deeper, and they're finding some of the things we've been trying to bring to light for years. Post-Dispatch, STL Today, has been in tandem looking into 0311 Tactical, bringing that to light, bringing the conflict of interest to light. Though it's legal on the books, U.S. citizens can get those laws changed. U.S. citizens can demand people like Brian Rossimano not be in charge of the SWAT team in St. Louis if those are the tactics going to be used. So there are things you guys at home can do with this information, which is why we're bringing it to light, and we'll continue to, no matter what. We still have a lot of information we're sitting on and sifting through, and so that's going to be coming out here in the next few days. But tonight, here at Sean Clem, protesters gathering. Hopefully, we'll get underway very shortly. And for the TYT Politics audience, thank you guys for joining us on RebZ.tv. Honored to be hosted on the TYT Politics Facebook page tonight to expand this audience. Keeping the torch going for Jordan while he's in Flint right now. He has obligations. He's got a lot of very important stories he's covering. You know, we definitely trust each other after we were covering here in St. Louis together, so kind of helping him out by letting you guys see what's still going on in St. Louis while he's away, and he's hoping to be back soon, so.
She's trying to build another.
I'm sorry.
Hi, Michael.
So this is the convenience store Von Derek Myers came out of with a sandwich. And then crossing Clem right here to the other side of the street. The first house on the street right here. This is where Von Derek ran. Right where you see these kids running right here. That's right. That night I was here. And right here on the ground was a huge, huge pool of blood from Von Derek Myers' freshly deceased corpse, sadly, after being gunned down by Jason Flannery. And you see, so he ran from the store up this way. You see here, no bushes. Ran through, tried to run through this way, and he was shot dead right here in the middle. These magic bushes they're talking about, the closest bushes you see are these right here, 2 houses down. So from the police story that came out the next morning, supposedly Von Derek jumped out of Flannery out of these bushes and then ran this way to get shot, even though Flannery said in the initial statement he saw him coming out of the store with what appeared to be a gun in his waistband. So both those, the initial story and the final police story, don't add up. That's why we call them the magic bushes. They seem to move from there to here and to back there again, depending on which narrative the police were telling. But again, he ran from when Jason confronted him. Von Derek tried to escape between these houses and was shot dead right here. I was on the scene. I saw the fresh blood. It'll haunt me for the rest of my life. So you see hundreds of people here at Sean Clem in honor of Von Derek Myers and to keep the spirit of the STL verdict, Jason Stockley protests alive. That's what's been going on here in St. Louis the last 3 weeks. Jason Stockley was found not guilty by a judge on a bench trial for the murder of Anthony Lamar Smith 5 years ago. And with the video evidence and evidence that should have been presented in court, it's one of the most clear-cut cases of murder that a cop should have been tried for and found guilty of. And yet the judge, even though there's evidence possibly the gun was planted, it's circumstantial that it was Anthony Lamar Smith's. The judge decreed that because he was a heroin dealer, again, through circumstantial evidence found in the car, because he was a heroin dealer, of course he had a gun, of course it was his gun. And so that's why the judge decreed that it was acceptable for Jason Stockley to execute him. And hence, for the last 3 weeks, protests have been going strong here in St. Louis. And 2 nights ago, we found ourselves back in Ferguson to show the connection between Mike Brown in 2014 and the protests going on now, how things really haven't changed and how there's protesters and citizens of St. Louis are still looking to clean up their police department. And it's just like back in Ferguson. I remember this 3 years ago to this day when this happened. We were usually be in Ferguson protesting at the police department or on West Florissant, and we heard this happen. We came out here, and it was a similar, except maybe not as many people that night as it happened, moments after it happened. So this event tonight is very personal to a lot of the protesters that have been protesting the last 3 weeks, because they were here 3 years ago, and even media like myself who was here and experienced that firsthand. So tying the larger Stockley protests into the larger issue at stake here in St. Louis, basically. You know, but people always try to say, well, Anthony, you guys were protesting over a drug dealer, or they said, Mike Brown, you guys were protesting over a thug. Well, people don't realize is that the protesters, for them, it's these individual cases, as tragic as they are the powder keg that fuels what's been going on under the surface in these communities. It's bigger than the individuals that are shot and highlighted. They just bring attention to the overall problem. So you can victim blame all you want, but that doesn't deter the protesters, because the overall issue of police brutality and systemic racism in St. Louis and as a whole in many of our cities is still there. It's still ongoing. And it's what protesters are trying to address. It's what they want you to address. Okay, new viewers. Hold on. Remember, I am multicasting right now on these 5 locations here: YouTube, Facebook, Ustream, Periscope, or go to my new website, RebZ.tv/live, and you can see us live right there. Also featured tonight on the TYT Politics page, so you can have 6 different locations. You can find this stream live right now. I want to thank Jordan for hosting us on here while he is away. I'm glad I could help you guys out by bringing this feed to your audience. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at revolutionary_Z. We've also got a new site, Twitter at RebZ.tv.
Can everybody hear me now? Yes. First off, thank you for being here. We thank you for being here. For those that don't know, on October 8th, 2014, Vondare Myers was killed by the police department, the St. Louis City Police Department. So we are here to uplift his family, to let his family know that we haven't forgot, that we will continue to fight, we will continue to stand with them. But the most important message about tonight, is love. You look at everybody that's next to you, everybody that's behind you, everybody that's in front of you. This is love. This is unity. This is the moment where we put all our differences aside. We put all our quarrels aside. And we come together for this family. And for this family only. This is what today is about. So I appreciate each and every person here. Each and every person that took the time out to be here. Each and every person that put a difference to the side to be here. Because our one common denominator is this family that we all love. So on behalf of the frontliners, organizers, who came together with other organizations, who came together with action councils to make tonight happen. We appreciate it.
It's our honor, it's our privilege to stand with you. To stand with you. To stand behind you, to hold up your arms, whatever it takes. This is our privilege, it's our honor. And we don't take that for granted. I don't take it lightly that you are serving a life sentence while the murderer of your son gets off scot-free. I don't take that lightly. Hold on, just a little while longer. Hold on, just a little while longer. Hold on, just a little while longer. Everything will be alright. So we're gonna fight on, mama. Just a little while longer. Fight on. Just a little while longer. Fight on. Just a little while longer. Everything will be alright. Together we know everything will be alright. So 3 years ago, on this day, a lot of us were in Ferguson on the parking lot of Andy Worm, and we got notification that we needed to come to the intersection of Shaw and Clem. And we've stayed at this intersection for 3 years. Every year on October 8th, We have declared this month October. The first year we sat down with the family and we decided that every week we would honor Von Myers Jr. We would honor his family. We would celebrate his life because we know how they tried to say that he didn't matter. And we knew that he mattered because he set the precedent, right? When people say, why are you fighting for him? Why are you fighting for her? We know that Von taught us that every black life matters, right? That all of us have to fight for each of us so that all of us can be free. And so we occupy the same intersection 3 years later. Our group has grown because our work has continued. Those same people who were in Ferguson on the Andy Worm lot are leading the protest now. And people have learned in 3 years that this is all of our fights, right? Yes. We all have a responsibility. Yes. The front line says, if you touch one, you touch all. And that is something that we have to deeply believe and deeply feel and deeply teach our children, our families, because these families suffer. And a lot of the times we don't remember that. We remember the name of the person who was taken. We don't think about the mother. We don't think about the father. We don't think about the son. And that's what the Myers family is carrying. And so every year, we don't come out here to talk about the person that is responsible for this action. We come out here to lift up Von Derek, right? This is about Drew. This is about Sarita. This is about Von Sr. This is about Kai. This is about his cousins. This is about the movement. This family has been the epitome of a family that supports the movement. I remember a month after they lost their son, the non-indictment came down around Mike Brown. We shut a highway down. Guess who was on the front line? Sarita and Von Derek. They were in Ferguson before they lost their own son, exemplifying what we all must be, because at any moment it could be us. And so we want to hold them, and we want to create space for them. If either of you would like to say anything.
I love y'all.
My name is Von Myers, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. We didn't know this was really going to happen because of things that occurred last year. We had incidents that occurred last year on this corner right here. We were afraid that something else was going to happen, so we didn't know this was going to happen. I'd like to thank Kayla and Bruce, my man right there. You know what I'm saying? Much love to both of these young people right here. They've been our support from day one. And I love how they bring so many people out. Right. And what I love mostly is the nationality out here. Different races. I love it. That's what I love the most, to see all of us come together in unity. Much love to everybody out here. Peace and love.
Love you.
Y'all heard me? No. Can y'all hear me now? Yeah. How about I talking to the right side? So, I want to really thank, before I talk about how much I love this family, I want to thank the frontline organizers who took to the streets on the day of the Jason Stockley verdict. We took to the streets for Anthony Lamar Smith. We organized around Anthony Lamar Smith. We fought, we strategized, and we continue to fight, and we continue to strategize. For everybody that thought that we couldn't do it, or we couldn't be the one, it's about us. And they ask us who us is. It's us. Mike Brown is the reason why that started my, I guess to say, activism. But Von Derek is what what turned me into the person that I am. Because before that, I didn't know how to take all of that anger and frustration I had and put it into a road of solution, to put it in a road of strategy. And I didn't know what the fight actually looked like. And so Miss Rita and Bondari Sr., who I call Mom and Pops, I've been with them since day one. A lot of us been with them since day one. And I ain't going nowhere. We've seen time after time. And we appreciate how strong y'all are.
Yes.
Because y'all could have gave up a long time ago. Y'all could have said to hell with all of this and not showed up for anything. But y'all continued to show up, even when others didn't show up for y'all. Y'all continue to fight, even when others didn't fight for y'all. Y'all continue to push forward. And that type of strength, you can't teach. That type of strength, that just got to be in you. So y'all know what y'all mean to me. And as for everybody who's been out here, we know what this family means to us. We must continue to love them. We must continue to wrap our arms around them. Not just on October 8th, but on October 9th, December 9th, January 9th, February 9th, March 9th, and so on and so forth. We must continue to support our families who have gone through these horrible tragedies. And not just when it's time to come out and have a balloon release or a candlelight, but each and every day. You hit them on Facebook, ask them how they doing. Call them, check on them. Even if it's just a good morning, it goes a long way. What we're going to do is, if everybody can, there are more balloons back there on the truck. If somebody can untie those balloons and pass them out, what we'll do is we'll do our balloon release. After we do the balloon release, we'll light the candles. We're going to all get together. And we're going to march. Just remember, tonight is about love, y'all. Tonight is about love. I remember growing up, nobody ever taught me how to love. They taught me how to do everything else. I learned how to fight. I learned how to argue. I learned how to be strong.
I know how to be strong.
That's what I'm talking about. Every day.
I've been fighting a mom.
What did you say? I'm fighting a mom.
Yeah, I'm a little kid. But nobody taught me necessarily how to love. Nobody taught me what that love looks like. I feel like in the past 3 years, I've hugged and told more people I love them than my whole 33 years of living. So from me to y'all, from the frontliners to y'all, we love y'all.
Love you too.
You do? That's what I'm talking about.
God likes me back.
That's right, baby.
Well, if the world was made up of kids, we'd be all right. We'd be all right. We have the balloons. We got the balloons untied. Everybody get their cameras out. Cameras ready. Mama, you got your balloon. Pops, you got a balloon. You got your balloon, little man.
Where's Daddy? That's he. That's he. Did you read Red Daddy? We got it.
On the count of 3, we're gonna send them to the sky, y'all. 1, 2, 3. Who's blocked? 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 Turn up, y'all. All right, flames going around past the flames. Watch out for the children. Please be safe while doing so. Absolutely. Please be careful with the fire. Please be careful with the fire. We don't want any issues. It's okay to block a highway. We don't accidents with fire.
Show them what community looks like.
This is what community looks like. This is what community looks like. This is what a family looks like. This is what a family looks like. Divided we fall. Divided we fall. Divided we fall. Divided we fall. This is what community looks like. This is what love looks like. This is what freedom looks like. This is what community looks like. This is what community looks like.
So again, for new viewers, we are here at the intersection of Shaw and Clem, where Von Derek Myers was killed by off-duty officer Jason Flannery 3 years ago today, October 8th, 2014. I was here less than a half hour after it happened. You see the first house on the other side of Clem right there. That's where he was shot, right in between those two houses. That's where he was running from Flannery, who unloaded his gun on him in between those houses there. Again, Flannery was off-duty, coming from his moonlighting gig as a private security guard in a neighboring neighborhood here. And he saw Von Derek come out of this shop with a sandwich and decided to chase him, and claimed self-defense for shooting him. Whether or not Von Derek had a gun is still debated. Even if he did, he was being chased by a plainclothes person firing at them. And the narrative shifted 3 times during the night from the police. The bushes that are 3 houses down seem to have moved, and supposedly the next day they claimed Von Derek jumped out of these magic bushes and caused Flannery to fire upon him. But that was houses. That's 2 houses down from where he was shot, in the same direction that he would have been running. So he came out of those bushes there, but also came out of the shop here with a sandwich. That changed throughout the night, and the video evidence shows him coming out of the shop right here at that time. So 3 years later, protesters are here to honor and support the family of Von Derek Myers. They did a balloon release you just saw, and now lighting candles for a candlelight vigil. And State Representative Bruce Franks Jr. said that they will march. I'm assuming we're going to march in the direction of Grand, which is this way, which was where during 2014 Ferguson protests, when we were out here in this neighborhood, is the direction we would usually take. So I'm assuming that's where the march is planned, but we'll find out in just a moment here.
But she's all like, she's sort of
Whoa.
Yeah, she's sort of You want a Gatorade, water? We have smaller bottles too, so they wouldn't be so heavy.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so again, protesters lighting their candles. They're going to march down Shaw momentarily here. And again, this is night 24 of the ongoing STL verdict Jason Stockley protests here in St. Louis. We're just over 3 weeks ago. Officer Jason Stockley of the SLMPD, or former officer, I should say, was found not guilty in the murder of Anthony Lamar Smith. 5 years ago, Stockley and his partner saw what they alleged was a drug deal, and so they decided to pull up on them, and Anthony Lamar Smith fled the scene. As, I mean, in the culture of being black in this city, that's what you would do, fearing for your life, regardless of whether you're doing something illegal or not. A high-speed chase happened. During the chase, you can hear Stockley say on audio that I'm going to kill that motherfucker. Just watch, which he ended up doing. When they approached the scene, his partner holstered his weapon, which pretty much shows on tape he was not a threat at the time. You can hear on OnStar audio Anthony Lamar Smith pleading for his life, and that was not allowed to be used in court. A lot of things that were damning against the officer were not allowed to be used in court. And so the judge determined, also the gun that looks like in the video that Stockley went back to his car 3 times and possibly planted, because there's no evidence that it was Anthony Lamar Smith's. The judge decreed that it was Anthony's gun because the judge, in his eyes, since he was a heroin dealer, again, on circumstantial evidence, he had to have had that gun, and it had to have been his. And so that's why the judge found it was reasonable for Stockley to commit homicide that day. And that sparked the latest wave of protests here in St. Louis that, I mean, the underlying issues of what started the Ferguson protests and the Mike Brown protests never really got solved. And so it got pushed back under the rug and just was waiting for another powder keg moment like this to reignite the movement here in St. Louis. I mean, the movement definitely spread throughout the country because these are issues being dealt with in cities all over the country. But it's now coming back home to St. Louis in a big way, and it has for the last 24 days. And now we're here at Shaw and Clem, where during the Ferguson protests, Von Derek Myers was shot and killed right here on this night 3 years ago. I was out covering the Ferguson protests on Florissant Road, and we got the call about this, and we came out here. I was out here just like half an hour or less after he was murdered. I saw the pool of blood in between the houses. I mean, that's going to haunt me for a long time. And to see in real time, being a witness afterwards on the scene, and the next day seeing the cops shift the narrative 3 times throughout the night with complete and utter lies, was just amazing and baffling to see it unfold, and to see the mainstream media in town, especially at the time, not question anything the police were saying. Fortunately now, the mainstream media in town, some of them seem to be a little bit more questioning of police. Now the police have decided to arrest some of their own. So that's good for us. That means more reporters are doing their job. And it's not a slam on all the... There's a lot of St. Louis reporters who've been trying for years to get some of these things uncovered, and, you know, it's not always within their power to do, but the power is shifting in that regard. So, speaking of Jason Flannery, who shot Von Derek Myers, about a year after that, he was actually fired from the St. Louis Police Department for being high on cocaine and crashing a police cruiser and then fleeing the scene. He was then fired. We believe that even after that, he was still hired as an 0311 tactical instructor, training St. Louis police and other police how to be SWAT and how to clamp down on protests. He definitely was an instructor of 0311. Whether or not he was after he was fired for cocaine use, we're still trying to definitively tie down. But either way, he is connected to Sergeant Brian Rossimano and Captain Deba and their private operation where they use tax-funded dollars to train St. Louis Police Department and others on how to use the tactics you've seen them use on protesters. Rossimano was at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland. Specifically, it seemed to point out people he knew from Ferguson. He pointed out to all the cops, all the people that were there from Ferguson that were protesting. He pointed out me specifically for arrest at one point. Told officers if he doesn't move in like 5 seconds, arrest him. When another officer told me I had nowhere to move and I had to stay there. That's the type of stuff he likes to. And then plays nice guy afterwards, saying, "Hey Z, I don't understand why you got so mad because you just threatened me for arrest." He likes to threaten people with arrest and shake his mace can. That's his tactics of de-escalation. And then he plays nice guy about it and wonders why everybody hates him. All right, looks like protesters might get underway marching here momentarily.
I want you to send nothing but love to the family. Moment of silence right now.
I love food.
very large turnout tonight at Sean Clem in honor of Von Derek Meyer, shot 3 years ago today by an off-duty St. Louis cop, who then got off. Yeah.
No peace. No peace. No peace. No peace. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I know that we will win. I believe that we will win. I know that we will win. They think it's a joke. 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 It ain't no joke. It ain't no joke. It ain't no joke. It ain't no joke. No peace. No peace. No peace. Police. Police. Police.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No funky ass police. No funky ass police.
That's from the arcade today.
It's been up all weekend.
Crowd so big, there's two competing chants. So I'm usually not the best at crowd size estimation. I usually leave that to David Carson when he's on scene, but I don't see him here tonight. But I definitely lost count at over 1,000 that just passed by me now. And there's still more behind me.
Shut it down! If we don't get it! Shut it down! If we don't
Circle up.
No peace. No peace.
Circle up, circle up, circle up. Circle up, circle up. Take the whole block. Come on in. Circle up, circle up. Circle up, circle up, circle up, circle up.
We got to fight back.
Circle up, circle up, circle up, circle up. Circle up.
Circle up.
Circle up.
We got to fight back. Fight back. Fight back. Fight back.
Circle up, circle up.
Fight back. 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 Fight back.
Circle up, circle up. We can get on the other side. We taking the whole atmosphere. Circle up. We still got folks walking up. So if you can scoot down all the way around, go ahead. Scoot down all the way around.
Out of your holes into the streets. Who block? Who block? You gotta say it like you really mean it. Who block? 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 Remember why you out here, you heard me?
I gotta say group, not group.
All right.
It's a sandwich. It's the droop sandwich. That was the name of that. It was a nickname for that turkey sandwich he got at the market.
Was it?
A droop sandwich. That's what I heard. That's what I was told.
I know. I do
Everybody sobered up? All right. If you ain't family,
I smell
please
fabric.
back up.
So do I.
Fabric.
I ain't from no Shaw Block, this is Drew Block. I ain't from no Shaw Block, this is Drew Block. I ain't from no Shaw Block, this is Drew Block.
Come on! Come on! Come on! Coming out.
Gang, gang.
For real. Gang, gang. All y'all is gang, gang. Facts. Got love for all y'all. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the support. Everybody coming out and everything. For real. Mean a lot to us. Especially my auntie and my uncle. Because there's motherfucking Drew Block and Fact 12. You know that.
Right.
Say I believe. I believe. I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win.
I know. I know that we will win.
I know that we will win.
I believe. I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win.
I know. because this is where Jason Flannery was supposed to be. He came down here to let folks know that we ain't forgot.
That's right.
We came down here just in case anybody's worried about their sleep right now. This family ain't got sleep in 3 years.
Tell them.
So we came down here because we know folks gonna be a little bit uncomfortable. This family been uncomfortable for 3 years.
Yep.
So we came down here to let y'all know that we ain't forgot and we ready.
Say what? Say what?
We ready. We ready for y'all. We ready. We ready for y'all. So we got, when all the people that was on the highway that really wasn't on the highway got off the highway that wasn't on the highway, we was walking down Market. We was walking down Jefferson. And we started saying, we ain't get no peace because of y'all, so y'all get no peace because of me, huh? We don't get no peace because of y'all. Y'all get no peace because of me, huh? We don't get no peace because of y'all. Y'all get no peace because of me, huh? We don't get no peace because of y'all. So y'all get no peace because of me. We don't get no peace because of y'all. So y'all don't get no peace because of me. We don't get no peace because of y'all. So y'all don't get no peace because of me. On the megaphone. Go ahead, Tori, get it together. Man, you better get that back. Come on, they ain't gonna get no sleep tonight.
We outside.
We gonna be out here all night. That's right. Keep on walking.
Who outside? We
outside. So y'all see how this street is made. Anybody who ran track, we're gonna do a lap. We're gonna start right here. We're gonna move the family to the front. Right here to the right.
Who outside? We outside.
Y'all got the, yeah, they got them. They got them.
Out of the house, into the streets.
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 Out of the house and into the streets.
Out of the house, into the streets.
Out of the house and 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 into the streets.
Alright, I'm gonna fall right in behind the family, y'all. Make sure we take our time. Make sure we take our time.
When I say who outside, y'all say we outside. Who outside?
We outside.
I like the sound of that. Who outside?
We outside.
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 Who outside?
We outside. 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 We
Again, very large turnout here on the south side of St. Louis. Originated at the Shaw and Clem, the site where Von Derek Myers was killed 3 years ago to the evening. So again, thanks for joining me again tonight here in St. Louis. Want to thank Jordan from TYT Politics for hosting our stream on their Facebook page tonight to keep the message of St. Louis going while he's out of town. He wants to come back. He has other commitments. He's in Flint right now covering the ongoing water crisis there. So I'm here to help keep his audience informed, and we're also on my 4 channels live here in St. Louis. Night 24 of the Jason Stockley protest. Jason Stockley found not guilty by a judge of murdering Anthony Lamar Smith 5 years ago. Just came down with a not guilty verdict 3 weeks ago. Spurring this latest round of protests here, basically just re-inflaming the tensions that were still there, that never got healed from the initial Ferguson uprising. And the Stockley case, Jason Stockley, who killed Lamar Smith. I mean, in the video, in the pursuit, he said he's going to kill this motherfucker. He goes back to his car 3 times, most likely planning a gun, because the gun did not have Anthony Lamar Smith's DNA or anything on it. But the cop declared the gun was Anthony Lamar Smith because apparently the judge said he's a heroin dealer based off circumstantial evidence, so he had to have had the gun and it had to have been his. Therefore, the murder was justified. Case closed, and that was the last case for that judge, I believe, and he's off. He doesn't have to worry about the consequences.
Because the street's not through.
So far, the consequences have been 24 days of ongoing protests, countless millions of dollars to the city and police overtime and lost revenue. Which, when you talk to the protest organizers, that's the entire point. Disruption to make the city hurt, so they'll rethink some of their policies and maybe actually start listening to their citizens. Maybe the mayor will stop canceling her town halls and having private closed-door meetings in a public place so she can say it's public, but it's a small invited group of people.
Shut it down! 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 We outside! 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 Protest! 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 Peaceful! Protest! Peaceful! Protest! Peaceful! Protest! Show them what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like! Show them what community looks like! This is what community looks like! Show them what unity looks like! This is what community looks like! Show them what a revolution looks like! This is what a revolution looks like! We shut it down! We shut it down! We shut it down! Our streets! Our streets! Our streets! Our streets! Our streets! Our
Hey, Dante. What's up, bro?
So again, for new viewers, I am multi-streaming on these 5 channels you see right here. YouTube, Facebook, Ustream, Periscope, or go right to RebZ.tv/live. And you can find my live stream right there. Also tonight featured on the TYT Politics Facebook page as well, keeping the torch going while Jordan is out of town. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at RevolutionaryZ_Z. Also RebZ.tv on Twitter, our new team Twitter page there. And we keep our channels 100% ad-free based on support by you, the viewer. So you can contribute to the RebZ.tv team. We're getting new writers, plan on getting more live streamers around the country on board, and we can expand the coverage beyond St. Louis, but still able to keep focus here on St. Louis. Even after I have to leave, I'll still have a team on the ground. So, and that's all reliant upon your donations. You can even become a monthly contributor for as little as $1 a month, helps out, and that's going to add up to getting our data costs covered, and then we can move from there to the next thing. We appreciate all the help so far.
We shut shit down! We shut shit down! We shut shit down!
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. We're working on it. All right. Find another helper. Let me get that in. Let me find something. We outside. We outside. We outside. Light bulbs.
No, those, yeah, they're pretty
From the old one.
Yeah, they're pretty dim.
Awesome. Because I live over on this side of the river.
Out of the house into the streets. 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 Out of the houses 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 into the streets. Say 3 years, we still here. Say 3 years, we still here.
Night 24 of the Jason Stockley protest here in St. Louis finds itself in the neighborhood of Shaw and Clem, where Von Derek Myers was killed 3 years ago to the day by off-duty officer Jason Flannery, who was then found. No charges were brought up. So just to highlight, the protests are more than just about Anthony Lamar Smith, more than just about Mike Brown, more than just about one person. Those names, just as tragic as they were, spark the built-up frustration and outrage in the community. And you see, like, I mean, this happened literally like a month and a half after Mike Brown was shot. And there were other police shootings just like that in between those two and directly afterwards in 2014 and continuing on to this day. So this protest in the Shaw neighborhood, very personal to a lot of people who were here 3 years ago, including media and others, live streamers like myself.
We're still here. We're still here. We're still here. We fed up. We fed up. We fed up. Can't take it no more. You fed up. Can't take it no more. We fed up. Can't take it no more. After 3 years, we still here. We fed up. Can't take it no more. After 3 years, we still here. We fed up. Can't take it no more.
So many hundreds of people here in the Shaw neighborhood tonight in St. Louis to support the family of Von Derek Myers, killed 3 years ago to the day during the heart of the Ferguson protests after Mike Brown was shot. I was there that night, just less than a half hour after the shooting, so quickly that I still remember seeing the pool of his blood in between the two houses where he was gunned down. Still fresh, not taped off or anything.
Shut it down. Shut it down. Shut it down.
Yeah, we still feel like
About a month and a half after the shooting and killing of Von Derek Myers here, in November, the no indictment of Darren Wilson came down. I was here on the south side that night while others were covering Ferguson. Protesters did take the highway, tear gassed multiple times on Grand, including a tear gassing of Mokabe's coffee shop. They actually tossed tear gas canisters at the doors and windows, where hundreds of people were fleeing to safety from the gas. And it's documented on my live stream and others' videos from that night, the tear gassing of Mokabe's. Led by Brian Rossimano of St. Louis Police, lead instructor of and founder of 0311 Tactical Solutions, who trains police to do such things. Jason Flannery, who killed Von Derek Myers, also hired as an instructor for 0311 Tactical even after the killing of Von Derek Myers, and most likely still on as an instructor even after Jason Flannery was fired as a St. Louis police officer for being high on cocaine and driving his squad car, crashing it, and fleeing the scene. That's the police officer that they covered up for the killing of Von Derek. He's good old pals with Brian Rossimano. Another slap in the face that St. Louis did to us. The year anniversary of Mike Brown, I think it was like a week after that, Mansour Balbay was shot in the back, unarmed, by a St. Louis police officer. And when the residents came out to protest that evening, not only did they bring out armed riot cops, they put Jason Flannery with his sleeves rolled up so you could tell it was him from his tattoos on the front of the line, as if to taunt protesters. This was right before Flannery was fired for crashing his car, high on cocaine, and then fleeing the scene. This is what we're dealing with here in St. Louis. Deep-rooted connections to people in charge and calling the shots.
No justice! No peace! No racist! Police! No justice! No peace! No racist! Police! If we don't get it, shut it down! Shut it down! Shut it down! If we don't get it, 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 shut it down! Von Derek didn't 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 get it, shut it down! Mike Brown didn't get it, shut it down! Mike Brown didn't get it, shut it down! You see your boy didn't get it, shut it down! You see your boy didn't get it, shut it down! Central Plan didn't get it, shut it down! Central Plan didn't get it, shut it down! Central Plan didn't get it, shut it down! Ayana Jones didn't get it, shut it down! Who shut shit down? We shut shit 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 down! People want to know. People want to know who we are, who we are. So we tell them, so we tell them, we are the people. Mighty, mighty protesters. Mighty, mighty people. Mighty, mighty people. Fighting for justice. Fighting for justice. Fighting for the people. United.
We'll never be divided. United. We'll never be divided. United. We'll never be divided. The people united.
Fuck police! Fuck police!
Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police!
FTP! Fuck the police! FTP! Fuck the police! FTP! Fuck the police! Hey, who outside?
We outside!
Hey, who outside?
We outside!
Tell her who outside?
We outside!
Hey, who outside?
We outside!
Hey, FTP!
Fuck the police!
FTP!
Fuck the police!
FTP!
Fuck the police!
Say FTP!
Fuck the police!
Who outside?
We outside!
Who outside?
We outside!
Who outside?
We outside!
Who outside?
We outside!
FTP!
Fuck the police!
FTP!
Fuck the police!
FTP!
Fuck the police!
FTP!
Fuck the police!
Say who outside?
We outside!
Say who outside?
We outside!
Who outside?
We outside!
Who outside?
We outside!
Who outside?
We outside! We outside!
Who outside?
We outside!
Who outside?
We outside!
They think it's a game.
They think it's a joke!
They think it's a game.
They think it's a joke!
They think it's a game.
They think it's a joke!
They think it's a game.
They think it's a joke! We outside! We outside! We outside! We outside! They think it's a joke! They think it's a joke! They think it's a joke! They think it's a joke!
Who outside?
We outside!
Who outside?
We outside!
Who outside?
We outside!
Who outside?
We outside!
FTP!
Fuck the police!
FTP!
Fuck the police!
FTP!
Fuck the police!
FTP!
Fuck the police!
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 Pigs in the blanket, five lights. Pigs in the blanket, five lights. Pigs in the blanket, pigs in the blanket. Who outside?
We outside!
Who outside?
We outside!
Who outside?
We outside!
Who outside?
We outside!
Pigs in the blanket. Pigs in the blanket. Pigs in the blanket. Pigs in the blanket. We outside. We outside. We outside. We outside.
We outside!
We outside. We whole block. Fight for
Perfect time for a battery change. Bear with me, folks.
Who outside?
So again, new viewers, welcome to night 24 of the Jason Stockley protest in St. Louis, sparked by the not guilty verdict of Jason Stockley, the former St. Louis cop who killed Anthony Lamar Smith after a high-speed pursuit. You hear in the video, or the audio on the video, during the pursuit, Stockley saying he's going to kill that motherfucker. Stockley shoots the guy after the other officer on scene had holstered his weapon. There's OnStar audio evidence showing Lamar Smith pleading for his life at the last moments that wasn't admissible in court. Stockley gets off. The judge determines because he was a heroin dealer, the gun had to have been his that was on the scene. Again, both circumstantial that he was a heroin dealer and that the gun was his, and the judge declared that was the reason why Stockley was able to get away with cold-blooded murder 5 years ago, just released. So that 24 days now of sustained protest in St. Louis. 2 nights ago, we were in Ferguson, where Mike Brown was shot in 2014, just about 2 months before this, 3 years ago. To show this, the protesters wanted to show the connection between Mike Brown, Anthony Lamar Smith, Mansour Balbay. All these people have been gunned down by the police in St. Louis and across the country, but specifically here in St. Louis. And so tonight we find ourselves, we started at Shaw and Clem on the south side, right where Von Derek Myers was shot by Jason Flannery, an off-duty St. Louis police officer, 3 years ago today. So right during the heart of the Ferguson protests. I was live streaming. I remember being down at the police department or in West Florissant. We got the call, and I got here within a half an hour of it being of it happening. And it's so fresh that we saw the pool of blood on the ground. We saw the magic bushes the cops claim he jumped out of 3 houses down from where he was shot. The police changed their story of what happened 3 different times during the night, which was heartbreaking for people that were here after it happened, eyewitnesses that were on the scene, and seeing the next day, to see the police shift the narrative like that and the media just eat it up, basically. So the family of Von Derek Myers has been going strong for 3 years, supporting the protesters supporting them, coming here every year anniversary. This one just happened to coincide with the ongoing Jason Stockley protests, bringing out a large number of people here to the south side. You saw there was a balloon release, then people lit candles, and we started marching. And typically, I said we were going to march to Grand. That's where a lot of times we would march during the Ferguson protests. That did not happen. Protesters marched around the neighborhood where Jason Flannery was hired as a security guard. When he was off duty from that is when he approached, chased down, and shot Von Derek Myers. So that's what is going on here tonight. That's how it's connected to the ongoing Stockley protests. Just to fill you in. And just so you guys know, if you're new to the channel, I am multi-streaming right now on the 4 channels, YouTube, Facebook, Ustream, and Periscope. You can find the YouTube feed right on my website, RebZ.tv/live. You can go to RebZ.tv/donate, become a contributing member. Even a $1 a month donation is going to go a long way to help us building this team, keep the written stories out, keep our live stream growing, get more live streamers on board. It'll help me teach and donate equipment to other live streamers. I've already got a lot of people here in St. Louis and around the country asking me what to do. Some people I know through experience I can trust. I'm going to start trying to get them equipment, battery packs, and the such. So donations like that are going to go a long way into growing grassroots journalism. It's not just about RebZ.tv. As you can see, being hosted also tonight on the TYT Politics page in a collaboration to try to keep this message going while Jordan's out of town. That's my mission here at RebZ.tv, is collaboration and growing independent and citizen and grassroots journalism. So thanks for tuning in. Marchers continuing now. What's that?
Your narration, keep going. Your narrations are great. Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
I'm working on it.
It's really good. It's good TV. It's what it is. Especially tomorrow. Yeah, I heard you say that. It's great. No, it's great.
It's actually hard. It's helping me. You know what I'm saying? Because it's forcing me to do more.
It's good. Yeah, I appreciate appreciate
A challenge.
the
A challenge is always good.
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying it.
Thanks for the comment.
Yeah.
We outside. We outside. We outside. We outside. We outside. We outside. We got to fight back. We got to fight back. We got to fight back. We shut shit down. We shut shit down. We shut shit down. We shut shit down.
Executive Sean Thurman here on night 24 of the Jason Stockley protests. Protesters showing up in support of the Von Derrick Myers Jr. family, who was shot 3 years ago today by off-duty officer Jason Flannery. Jason Flannery fired a year later for being high on cocaine and crashing a squad car and leaving the scene. Jason Flannery, also 0311 tactical instructor under Sergeant Brian Rossamano, who teaches other police how to be brutal, and they're teaches the tactics that you've seen on display here in St. Louis. .311 Tactical, co-owned by Rossamano and Cap Diva, also a St. Louis police officer in command. We've done a couple articles exposing what we were finding on 0311, as well as the Post-Dispatch St. Louis Today has also been releasing some articles and uncovering things. We've got a lot of information we're sorting through. We've already got it, so they've already been scrubbing their websites and deleting things, but we've already got it all. So it's just a matter of going through it, organizing it, verifying things, and we'll be releasing more articles on 0311 Tactical at RebZ.tv. We've already got episode 1 and 2 out.
got you. Who is that back there?
Where the gathering and march started today, here at Shaw and Clem, the store where he came out with a sandwich and ended up dead. It's just a house over here. Von Derek Myers 3 years ago today.
Yes.
I get some water.
Any more water? You already know what it is. I don't think this is kind of water. But who? Killer water.
How y'all doing tonight? I said, how y'all doing tonight? I just want to thank all of you all for coming out and showing this family so much love and support. So this chant right here is one of my favorite chants because of the promise that we're making not only to ourselves, but to each other, to the community, to this family, to all the families we are fighting for here in St. Louis and all across the world. So when we say this, I want you to muster up everything that you have in you, because this is a promise, like I said, to this movement and to connecting to black folks across the world, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So.
I don't think they heard you, because I only heard a few.
So I said, I want you to muster up everything that you have in your spirit when you say this, because we're making a commitment to not only ourselves, not only the person next to you, not only the people here in St. Louis, but to the people across the world, right? Because we fighting for black lives across the world, right? So it is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and support each other.
We must love and support each other.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and support each other.
We must love and support each other.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and support each other.
We must love and support each other.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
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 Alright, so thank you all for coming out tonight. You all can take the expect us change. We'll be having a flyer dropping soon, but this official action is over.
Another one. Another one.
I was just looking for a mic, so I thought you were talking about I posted on Facebook, like, I need a mic, my GoPro. I'm like,
Sis, are you?
All right, so that's the conclusion to the action tonight. No arrests, no mace, At least yet. Hopefully people get to their cars safely. You never know in St. Louis here with the police. They do like to stalk certain protesters and journalists. But the action is over successfully. I'm sure police were guarding the highways like their life depended on it. They were very pissed that protesters managed to out-strategize them the other day. Not only to get on the highway, but also to get off it before they could round them up on the highway. So I'm sure they were over there in brute force. Again, that's part of the protest to get the money to spend waste tax dollars on peaceful protest. So again, for people new to the channel or from the TYT audience who's been watching tonight as well, this is night 24. This was night 24 of the Jason Stockley protest here in St. Louis. I'm gonna move my camera so I don't get run over here. Night 24 of the ongoing protest. Jason Stockley was an officer 5 years ago who shot and killed Anthony Lamar Smith after a high-speed pursuit. You hear in the audio Jason Stockley saying, "I'm gonna kill that motherfucker," when they got him in his car. His partner holstered his weapon, but Jason Stockley decided to basically empty his magazine on Anthony Lamar Smith. You see Jason Stockley going back to his car at least three times in the footage. What we can assume is to plant the gun that was found on the scene that he claimed was Anthony Lamar Smith's. There was no DNA evidence or fingerprints on the gun to prove it was Anthony Lamar Smith's. But the determining factor for the judge was the fact that, in his mind, Anthony Lamar Smith was a heroin dealer, therefore he had to have a gun, and that was his gun. So therefore, the execution of Anthony Lamar Smith by Jason Stockley was warranted. And that's what sparked this latest round here in St. Louis, bringing back home the movement that was started here in Ferguson from Mike Brown's death that spread around the country from police brutality and killing of mostly black men in our urban cities has found its way back here to St. Louis now because of this 24 days of ongoing protests, of costing the city money, of costing businesses money, and trying to get local politicians and lawmakers to finally listen, and citizens to finally listen and hopefully make some changes here. Tonight was very special because this was Sean Clem, the site where 3 years ago on this day, Von Derek Myers was killed by another Jason Flannery, who at the time was off duty. He was actually off duty from his second job, which was moonlighting as a private security guard in a neighborhood just over here. He chased Von Derek out of the store you see right here in front of us here. Von Derek came out of there with a sandwich. He chased him over to in between his first two houses. That's where his body was shot dead, right in between those two houses. That's where he's running. After cops changed the story many, many times, they said he jumped out of bushes and attacked Jason Flannery, and that's why Jason Flannery was defending himself. Well, the only bushes are 3 houses down over there. So then, by their timeline, he came out of here with the sandwich. Jason Flannery saw him somewhere around here because Jason Flannery came from this way. Von Derek Myers then ran over here in magic speed time, hid behind the bushes with his sandwich, jumped out at Jason Flannery when he came out, and supposedly that's what happened after the police changed the narrative again 3 times. So protesters out here in support of the Von Derek Myers family. Again, 3 years to this day. That was right during the heart of the Ferguson protests, literally within the first 2 months. I remember live streaming in Ferguson when we got the call of what was going on here. I got here within half an hour of it going down. So soon they hadn't taped it off. We saw the blood stain right in between the houses. It haunts me to this day. So that's why protesters decided to come bring it to Shaw. That's why protesters came to Ferguson 2 nights ago to make the connection between all these different killers in the city and the socioeconomic issues that lead to street violence and lead to then police violence as well. How can we clean up our streets if we don't have trust in the police? That's first and foremost. So you can talk about black on black crime all you want, but we can't take care of our communities until we trust our police aren't going to shoot us when we call them, especially being a black man in the city. So that's why people say we need police accountability first. That's why people say Black Lives Matter, because we need to make black lives equal first. We need to be able to trust the police first, and then maybe we as a community can start taking care of the socioeconomic issues that lead to some of the street violence. So for new viewers, always remember, I am multicasting on 4 different channels: YouTube, Facebook, Ustream, and Periscope. You can also find it live on RebZ.tv/live. You can also check out our webpage, RebZ.tv. Go to RebZ.tv/donate. Become a monthly contributor now for as little as $1 a month. It's going to help us continue this mission, growing the website, spreading grassroots independent journalism, teaching others, and sharing the stories from St. Louis and beyond. I want to thank all of the contributors so far helping grow this. I thank all of my mods and my webmaster and the people who helped me out mostly on donating their time to help get this project up and running. You guys, there's a lot of people behind the scenes making this happen. So I just want to give a huge shout out to them. It's not easy work what they do, seeing all the comments they see and dealing with all of that BS on their end, but I appreciate it so much. Can't do it without you guys. And obviously we can't do it without you guys viewing at home, sharing the links, spreading the truth out there, getting the live stream spread while it's happening. Very crucial, and even after it's happening, to show what has happened in the evening so that way the narrative doesn't get shifted in the media. We appreciate that. It's more helpful than you know in the long strategy. And again, I want to thank Jordan Cheriton of TYT, having my page hosted on TYT Politics page tonight as well, holding the torch for him while he's out of town. He's got other obligations. He was here, he got tied, the police made him part of the story, and now the protesters want him back, and I know his audience wants him back here too. He's in Flint right now. He's going to try to get back here as soon as he can, so my stream, holding the torch for him on their page so that way you viewers on the TYT Politics page can stay abreast of what's going on here in St. Louis, pending Jordan's return. And of course, I want to thank all my viewers as well. So from St. Louis, Sean Clem, RebZ, signing out for the evening, unless, of course, something happens. Obviously, pay attention to my Twitter. If I go live, you'll see it first immediately right then. Probably not tonight. And I will let you know tomorrow if I'm going to go live. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget to check out the new site, RebZ.tv, see in the upper right-hand corner right there. Leave your comments on the contact form right there, and I will respond to you personally on those. Or you can go to the Facebook page. If no response from the contact form, you can talk to my mods there. They can pass along messages to me if it's important. A lot to handle when I get home after these streaming ventures now. But anyway, I'm rambling, and I will cut it short. You guys have a wonderful evening. I will see you probably tomorrow, if not the next day. But I'm here in St. Louis for the long haul, as long as needed. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
Is it a Wi-Fi?
No, I'm not going to leave yet. I'm going to be taking it for him. Right down here.